The question is that the motion be agreed to, and I call the member for North Sydney.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. According to Sun Tzu, the art of war teaches us to rely not on the likelihood of the enemy's not coming, but on our own readiness to receive him. Not on the chance of his not attacking, but rather on the fact that we have made our position unassailable. This wisdom was offered over 2,500 years ago, yet it appears Australia is still grappling with the lesson. Rather, our defence strategy to date has been largely based on the key assumption that our key ally America is the preeminent power in the Asia-Pacific region, and therefore it is unlikely that Australia would face a military threat from a major power because America would prevent that kind of threat from emerging. And if for some reason we were threatened, America would come to our defence. And that may have been a fine assumption over the course of the last 80 years, but with the shifting geopolitical environment, we must consider more seriously than ever before whether Australia can defend itself independently, and if so, how. The motion moved by the member for Canning, then, is very timely. I agree with him. There are new threats, and I agree. We need to prioritise not just developing new capabilities, but also building a strong values-based narrative of service, duty and country. I would add to his argument, however, that for our approach to be most effective, we must also be willing to divest from strategies that no longer serve us or provide a less than optimal return. There are just over 26 million people in Australia, and population growth has been stable at 1% a year. My understanding is that the size of our current ADF has also remained relatively stable in recent times, with just over 58,500 defence personnel, including a much smaller number of frontline combat personnel currently in service. Nearly 22,000 reserve personnel are also then enlisted, which means that just 0.3% of our community could be mobilised relatively quickly should we come under direct attack. This is a fraction of the size of the forces of neighbouring middle power countries, such as South Korea and Indonesia, with each dwarfing Australia's military capabilities with nearly 600,000 and 340,000 troops respectively. China then boasts the largest military in the world, with more than 2 million troops and a naval force that has more than tripled in size over the past 2 decades. Looking at our circumstance, Greg Moriarty, the Secretary of the Department of Defence, noted in the 21-22 Australian Government Defence Annual Report that the ADF remains focused on continuing to build a diverse and inclusive culture for our people. However, he did not specifically address the challenge of increasing its numbers. He did, though, reference the ADF's focus on achieving range and survivability. In the same report, General Angus J. Campbell, AO DSC, General Chief of Defence Force, said, "People are the most important component of military capability, and the success of the Australian Defence Force, like a nation, lies in the character of its people and the culture of our teams." Again, he did not specifically address how we build a force that can defend our continent independently from direct attack. In a world where there is no imminent threat to our nation, then, how do we encourage every Australian to consider what role they can play in ensuring our long-term strategic independence without simply fear-mongering? According to the 2022 Lowy Institute poll, Australian sense of safety has been up and down in recent years, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine and instability closer to home appearing to affect public opinion, with just over half of all Australians reporting they felt safe or very safe. This is down from 70% in 2021. 3 in 5 Australians then also reported they're concerned about a potential conflict in the Taiwan Strait, up from 36% in 2017. Australians also expressed high levels of concern over other non-traditional security threats, with 2/3 citing cyber attacks from other countries and a similar number citing climate change as posing critical threats. Yet if enlistment numbers are anything to go by, the sense of increasing risk is not translating into action. We do not have the compulsory military training of the Scandinavian and some EU countries to ensure our ever-ready sizeable force can be stood up quickly if required, nor do we have the patriotic fever that comes with America's military service. It's hard to see this changing, but unless the Australian population is inspired to think and care about defence, we have little chance of meaningful change. This will require our government to develop and communicate clear priorities to both defence forces and our wider community, which sounds pretty straightforward, but it's likely to be anything but, as the ADF is a large and complex bureaucracy with many factions competing for limited resources. We must accept we can't protect ourselves from every conceivable threat and instead clearly articulate where we are going to take the risk and why. Success is far from guaranteed, and we all have an important role to play. Thank you.